The Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, created by Gravitas Dream. A hard winter settles over the city, and Ebenezer Scrooge walks as if warmth is a rumor. He keeps his eyes on locks, keys, and closed doors, not on people. The season's songs drift past him and fade without leaving a mark. In his mind, kindness is an expense with no return. Inside his counting office, Scrooge measures life in numbers and columns. He counts coins with careful pride, hearing only the clink that comforts him. Every request for mercy feels like an interruption he must defeat. Yet the quiet around him feels too large, as if waiting for a crack. Scrooge's nephew arrives with an invitation and a hopeful smile. He offers dinner, laughter, and a chair by the fireplace, asking nothing in trade. He believes even a bitter man can still choose joy. Scrooge's door remains closed, but the offer lingers in the air. Scrooge refuses the invitation with sharp words and a colder stare. He calls celebration foolish and treats love like a nuisance. His nephew leaves with sadness, but also stubborn goodwill. The refusal does not protect Scrooge, it only deepens the silence he lives in. Two businessmen come seeking a donation for those who are hungry and cold. They speak politely, assuming wealth can afford a little mercy. Scrooge answers as if need is a crime that deserves punishment. When they leave, the room feels even smaller. A gentleman stays long enough to describe the harsh conditions outside Scrooge's office. He speaks of empty tables, bitter nights, and the thin line between pride and despair. For a moment, Scrooge cannot hide behind jokes or rules. Something uneasy stirs, like a conscience remembering its name. Alone, Scrooge touches an envelope and studies the coins in his palm. He tells himself it is only a practical gesture, not compassion. Still, the act feels unfamiliar, like speaking a language he once knew. He seals the envelope and wonders why his hand trembles. Night falls, and Scrooge walks home through fog and weak street lamps. The city seems to hold its breath as if listening. His footsteps echo like a warning he cannot interpret. He tells himself he is safe behind his habits. At his door, Scrooge pauses, struck by a sudden dread. The knocker's shape seems almost alive in the shifting light. He blinks, and the moment passes, but the chill remains. He unlocks the door as if entering an argument with the dark. Inside his home is quiet and severe, like a room built for loneliness. He lights a candle, and shadows climb the walls. Small noises sound larger than they should, and he finds himself listening. The stillness feels crowded. Jacob Marley appears, not as a memory, but as a presence that fills the air. His face carries the weight of regret, heavy and unhidden. Scrooge tries to deny what he sees, but denial fails in the face of truth. Marley stands like a sentence waiting to be read. Marley shows the chain he forged through greed and neglect. Each link seems to speak of moments when mercy was refused. He tells Scrooge that suffering does not vanish when ignored. It returns in harder forms. The lesson lands with the sound of iron. Scrooge sits frozen, pride slipping into fear. He wants to argue, but his voice feels small. Marley's warning strikes at the part of him that has always known he is alone. For the first time, Scrooge wonders if his life has been a mistake. Marley speaks of 3 spirits who will visit Scrooge before the nights are done. He insists the visits are not punishment, but a chance to change the ending. Scrooge tries to bargain, yet no bargain is offered. Marley fades, leaving the room colder than before. Scrooge lies awake, staring into the dark with strained eyes. Every creak feels like a footstep, and every gust like a whisper. He tries to summon skepticism, but fear answers first. Sleep finally takes him like a heavy curtain. A bright figure arrives, and the ghost of Christmas past fills the room with shifting light. The spirit's glow is gentle, yet impossible to ignore. Scrooge feels pulled toward memories he locked away. The air smells of old seasons and older sorrow. The spirit opens a door of light, and Scrooge reaches for it despite himself. He feels both dread and longing, as if the past might forgive him. The room falls away, replaced by the ache of earlier years. He steps forward, unable to resist the truth. Scrooge sees himself as a young boy in a cold schoolroom. The child works in silence, learning endurance instead of comfort. The memory stings because it explains more than Scrooge wants to admit. He realizes how early he began to live alone. The ghost shows a lonely child left behind while others go to warmth. The child's stillness is louder than any crying, as if hope has gone quiet. Scrooge feels shame at how familiar the scene is. He wants to look away, but the spirit will not let him. A sister from his youth appears with a letter and a brave smile. She speaks of home and of love that waits even when forgotten. Scrooge remembers kindness offered without conditions, and his chest tightens. The past becomes personal, no longer a story to observe. The spirit brings back the strange comfort of imagined adventures. Ali Baba appears like a bright dream in a dark room, reminding Scrooge how stories once saved him. He remembers hiding in make-believe when real life felt too sharp. Even fantasy now feels like evidence of need. Robin Crusoe appears with the calm of survival and solitude. The image mirrors Scrooge's own habit of building walls and calling them safety. He understands that isolation can be learned and also unlearned. The lesson arrives without judgment, only clarity. Young Scrooge waits with a small case, trapped between leaving and belonging. The ghost lets him feel the ache of being unwanted and unsure. Scrooge watches, unable to protect the child he once was. Regret grows into something like compassion. The scene changes to a warm hall prepared by Fezziwig. The older man's cheer feels effortless, as if generosity is a natural skill. Scrooge notices how a simple celebration can make a hard life softer. He begins to see what he traded away. Fezziwig dances with open joy, turning work and duty into shared delight. Scrooge watches the memory like a starving man watches bread. He realizes that power can be used to lift people instead of shrinking them. The thought unsettles him because it is true. Back in the dim light, Scrooge holds his chest as if the past has struck him. He remembers himself once capable of warmth and humor. The contrast between then and now feels unbearable. He wonders when he chose money over people. The ghost of Christmas past shows him a broken promise and a love he failed to keep. Scrooge sees how fear of loss turned into hunger for control. He understands that he did not just become hard. He practiced hardness every day. The spirit offers no comfort, only honesty. Overwhelmed, Scrooge tries to shut out the spirit's light. He wants the past to stop speaking, but it will not. His hands tremble as he fights against memory and meaning. The more he resists, the more he feels how much he has to change. The bright scenes fade, and exhaustion takes Scrooge completely. He slumps into sleep like a man defeated by his own history. The silence that follows is not peace, only pause. Somewhere beyond the dark, the next lesson waits. The ghost of Christmas present arrives with rich color and steady strength. The spirit's presence turns Scrooge's bare room into a place that can hold joy. Scrooge feels small beside such open generosity. The night becomes a window into lives he never tried to understand. Food and light appear, symbols of plenty shared rather than hoarded. The spirit gestures as if inviting Scrooge to look, listen, and learn. Scrooge realizes that celebration is not waste. It is connection. The lesson feels both simple and revolutionary. Scrooge stands near the table, amazed by warmth he did not earn. He recognizes that he has always feared scarcity, even when surrounded by wealth. The spirit's plenty does not mock him. It challenges him to loosen his grip. For once, Scrooge does not argue. The spirit brings him to Bob Cratchit's home, modest and carefully kept. Bob moves with gentle attention, making a small meal feel important. Scrooge watches the labor and love and feels a sting of responsibility. He begins to see his clerk as a full person, not a tool. Tiny Tim appears, bright and fragile, carrying joy as if it is lighter than pain. Scrooge is struck by the child's gratitude and steady courage. The sight makes Scrooge's earlier cruelty feel suddenly shameful. He wonders what his own choices have already cost. Bob carries the meal with pride, as if dignity can be cooked into any dish. The home is plain, but the mood is rich with care. Scrooge feels the weight of every time he tightened the screws on Bob's life. He does not speak, because there is nothing to defend. Tiny Tim tastes the pudding like it is a treasure. The simple sweetness becomes a kind of prayer for more days like this. Scrooge feels himself soften, surprised by tenderness. He starts to hope the future can be kinder than the past. Pulled back to himself, Scrooge stares at the cold window and listens to his own thoughts. He realizes that his isolation has never been strength. It has been fear dressed as principle. The spirit's scenes have cracked his certainty. In the quiet, he feels a strange wish to belong. The spirit shows distant labor and hard places where goodwill still survives. In the mine, Scrooge senses how people can share warmth even without comfort. The lesson is not about wealth, but about choice. He begins to understand that generosity is a way of seeing. In the lighthouse, Scrooge sees a solitary light cutting through storms. The image reminds him that small acts can guide lives in darkness. He thinks of his own power and how rarely he used it for anything but control. The thought leaves him unsettled and awake. On a ship, the sea looks endless and the night feels sharp. Even there, the spirit shows that hope can travel farther than fear. Scrooge understands that community is not a place. It is a practice. He starts to feel ashamed of how often he refused it. The ghost of Christmas present stretches the view across the city, blessing homes with unseen kindness. Scrooge senses joy moving like a current through many lives at once. He realizes he has been standing outside that current by choice. For the first time, he wants to step in. The spirit brings him to his nephew's house, where laughter comes easily. Scrooge sees games, music, and warmth offered without conditions. He realizes his nephew's invitation was not a trick, only love. The sight makes his refusal feel smaller than ever. His niece plays music, turning ordinary air into comfort. Scrooge notices how celebration can be made from simple things and shared attention. He feels the ache of years he spent alone by choice. The sound becomes a reminder that he still has time. His nephew raises a toast to Scrooge even after being rejected. The gesture is generous, almost stubborn in its goodwill. Scrooge hears his name spoken with affection instead of fear. Something inside him loosens like a knot finally giving way. Scrooge sits apart, listening to joy meant for him as much as anyone. He realizes he has been starving himself, not just others. The spirit's lesson is clear. Connection is a gift that must be accepted. In the silence, Scrooge begins to practice gratitude. The ghost of Christmas present reveals ignorance and want, warnings made visible. Scrooge recoils, recognizing the cost of turning away from suffering. The spirit insists that these dangers grow when people pretend not to see them. The lesson lands like a verdict on Scrooge's old excuses. Scrooge walks slowly, burdened by what he has learned. He no longer feels proud of being untouched by need. He feels responsible. The night seems longer now because it carries consequences. He senses the next spirit approaching like a cold tide. A silent figure arrives, the ghost of Christmas yet to come. The spirit's stillness is more frightening than any shout. Scrooge understands that this visit will not flatter him with gentle memories. He gathers courage because he has no other choice. Scrooge follows the spirit through fog and narrow streets. The future looks familiar and strange at once, like a dream built from his habits. He tries to speak, but the spirit offers no answers. The silence forces Scrooge to supply his own meaning. He overhears wealthy men discussing a death with casual amusement. Their tone is cold, as if a life is only a headline to pass. Scrooge recognizes the sound of his own indifference in their voices. Fear tightens around him because he suspects who they mean. The spirit leads him to a shop where stolen goods are traded without shame. Scrooge watches the scene with growing disgust and dread. He understands that a life can be reduced to scraps when no one loved the person who lived it. The lesson is brutal because it is believable. Scrooge sees cloth and small treasures handled like meaningless clutter. He realizes that possessions outlast owners, but they do not carry dignity by themselves. The future shows him the end of a life devoted to things. He feels the terror of being remembered only as profit. The ghost points toward a bed where someone lies unseen under a sheet. Scrooge feels the room's emptiness more than any sound. He understands that solitude can follow a man all the way to the end. His fear becomes sharp enough to cut through denial. Scrooge stares at papers and ink, searching for a name and finding his own fate instead. The moment is quiet, but it crushes him. He realizes the future is not random. It grows from choices repeated over years. He begins to beg for a way to change. An empty room appears filled with unopened gifts that no one brings. Scrooge sees how a life without love ends without ceremony. The loneliness is not tragic because it is dramatic, but because it is ordinary. He feels the full weight of what his habits create. The spirit shows Bob Cratchit in grief, holding Tiny Tim's small crutch. Scrooge realizes the child's bright spirit did not survive this future. The loss strikes him with a pain he never expected to feel for someone else. He understands that his cruelty rippled outward into real lives. The ghost of Christmas, yet to come, leads Scrooge to stone markers in heavy fog. The spirit points, asking Scrooge to look at the end he earned. Scrooge's courage breaks, replaced by desperate humility. He sees how easily the world moves on without him. Scrooge kneels and pleads, promising to become a different man. He vows to honor the lessons, not just fear them. The future feels like a door that might still be closed, but he pushes anyway. In that moment, his desire to change becomes real. Scrooge wakes in his bed, sunlight pouring in like forgiveness. He laughs with relief, stunned that he still has time. The weight on his chest is gone, replaced by urgency and joy. He decides to act before courage can fade. He rings a bell and tests his voice, as if learning to speak again. The sound feels like a promise to the day. He realizes that joy can be chosen, not waited for. His old stinginess suddenly looks absurd. Scrooge arranges a great turkey with care, determined to give without being seen. He feels delight in the simple act of helping. The gift is not payment for guilt, it is practice for a new life. He moves with the energy of a man reborn. Bob Cratchit opens the parcel and can hardly believe what he sees. Hope rises in him like heat from a small fireplace. The gift means more than food. It means someone finally noticed. Far away, Scrooge feels joy in giving rather than owning. Scrooge goes to his nephew's home and chooses to step inside instead of turning away. The welcome he receives is warm, not earned by excuses but offered by love. He joins the games and music with awkward sincerity, then real laughter. The bonds he neglected begin to mend. In time, Tiny Tim stands warmer and steadier, surrounded by care. Scrooge becomes a better friend and a kinder employer, not by grand speeches, but by daily choices. The season keeps its songs, and now they reach him. Scrooge learns that goodwill is a life, not a performance.